Hey Joshua, how are you?
Good, Sid. How you doing, man?
Good. So I would like to have a discussion with you today.
Okay.
You're a very recent career changer,
Yeah.
and you're a person with no IT, not even science background, totally
Right.
100% super humanitarian background. Yeah, you were a pastor,
hmm
and you successfully went from a non-technical background to a developer job.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I would like to have a discussion with you about how can others who are in a similar position like you, maybe they were not a pastor, but maybe they're a teacher or someone in sales or something else, very humanitarian, how can they make a similar transition? What advice would you give them? And so let's have a discussion about this for the next 10 minutes with our viewers.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. That's a great question, man. I think it definitely feels a lot more intimidating when you're coming from a non-technical background. I feel like, especially people that have gone to school for this, like have a bit of foundation that I kind of miss. I kind of lack going through the coding boot camp route. But getting a job is still doable. It's the issue is I think it comes with people try to do things the same way. So like there's these like sort of unwritten rules, right? That we're supposed to do this job thing. Um, this certain way, and I, in order for me to kind of break into the industry, I knew that I had to stand out from the crowd. I had to be different. I had to show people my work ethic, that I was willing to learn and I was willing to work hard. And though I think those are the things that actually transition well into communicating. Those things are what's important for hiring managers to hear. This guy's fresh. He doesn't have the experience that we want, but he's going to work hard for us and he's going to do his best. So
Exactly. That's the kind of impression you probably gave off, and that's why they gave you a chance. How do you give off that kind of impression? Yeah, everyone wants someone with experience. Like if you look at the job description, yeah, they all say
yeah,
2 years, 3 years job description. And how can you stand out against other candidates who might have experience?
the way that I first landed my first Salesforce role was actually through Craigslist. What I did was I saw there was a posting um, that needed they were looking for a Java developer with 2 to 3 years of experience. I am literally at this point I'm halfway through coding bootcamp. I am not the right candidate that they're looking for. So what I did was I hit reply to the Craigslist posting. And if you didn't know this, Craigslist actually has like a section for software that you can, for software and websites, and you can go there and you can click on it. So anyways, that was a side note, but I clicked on it, I replied to the message, and I wrote a message, something along the lines of, "Hey, my name is Josh. I am in the middle of coding boot camp. I'm loving this. And this is exactly what I want to do. And I just want you to know that I know that this. I just didn't want this to be a waste of time for both of us. I know I'm not the candidate you're looking for, but if you're looking to hire someone, I will work hard. I will be there. And just kind of told them, this pitch, this idea. And honestly, sometimes that's really scary to do because you're like, are they going to hate me? What are they going to send back? But and so I just decided I'm just going to take a risk with this. And so honestly, that's what I feel like a lot of people are lacking. They're so timid about trying to take a risk and move forward. That they're like, well, I can't qualify for that job. Well, I don't do that. And so actually, so to continue my story, I just kind of sent the email. I didn't think I was going to hear back. And then all of a sudden, I got an email back where the guy was like, "Hey, you're definitely not what we're looking for, but we do have a web project that you might be able to help us on. Would you be interested in hearing more?" And I said, "Yes, I would." And so, uh, I think one of the things that you have to do is you have to be willing to break the mold of what people tell you to do. Like the mold and the unspoken rules would say, "Josh, you don't have 2 to 3 years of experience, and you're not a Java developer." As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen Java. I was learning Python, and I knew a little tiny bit of JavaScript, and so that's kind of where I was. And I said, so I sent that, the rules say don't do that. And I just broke the rules, and that got my foot in the door.
Do you still have that email you sent out?
Oh, I don't know if I still have it. I looked for it. I looked for it, but I don't think I have it anymore.
Yeah. So when you apply for jobs, do you typically customize the message like that? Do you say, hey, give me a chance. I'm a hardworking guy. I learn
Mm-hmm.
fast. Is this what you typically say when you respond to postings? Or was it just an opportunity you saw and you just change your strategy?
When I'm responding to jobs, I have kind of three categories of jobs that I'll do. One are like dream jobs, right? And with dream jobs, what I'll
Mm,
do is I'll definitely, like, I see it and I'm like, oh, I would love to work for that company. I would love to do this, right? And those jobs are ones that I'll definitely go after, and I'll customize my resume. I'll change my um, if it was a dream job or a good job, yeah, and it was something that I wanted to reach out for, then I would do that. Last time we talked, I think I mentioned Twitch, um, and with Twitch, I thought it'd be a really cool company to work for. So I sent them I saw the job posting. I sent the Salesforce manager a personalized message, and he tagged everyone in his team. I added them all on LinkedIn, and I said, hey, what's up? My name's Josh. I'm applying for the open position. I'm a Salesforce developer. Like, I'd love to know more about your team. What's it like working at Twitch? Just like an open, this is LinkedIn. This is all on LinkedIn. And most of them ignored me, but one of them is my friend now, or the connection, I guess. And the hiring manager is a connection. So whenever he posts another job, what I'll probably do, I'll probably say, I'll do something like that. Or when I'm looking for a job, if they're offering a job, so.
So you said that when you apply for jobs, you try to go different, something that many people don't do. Yeah, like for Twitch, you reached out to the team, the Salesforce team via LinkedIn. For your first job, you admitted that you don't have the skills, but you're still very interested in the job. So is this
Mhm.
typically what you do when you apply for jobs? You look for like a way to stand
Yeah,
out?
I think about it like competitive advantage, right? I mean, like, people that are maybe like a professional swimmers. I had some family that did like really intense swimming, and some friends too, and they would like shave their legs, or even bicyclists, right? And you're like, why? What? Like, why would you shave your legs? Like, that's so weird, as someone who's not really an athlete. And then, but realizing like they'll do anything to get a competitive advantage, and they're like, when I shave my legs, like it helps me get through my laps like 0.5 seconds faster, and they'll use that competitive advantage just to win. And so I think when you're transitioning from some place that doesn't have anything to really, you're not in tech at all, and you're transitioning into tech, you need competitive advantages. You need a lot of them stacked up, and that's kind of the idea of why you do what you do, right? That's why I reach out. I mean, like, because I'm looking for these competitive advantages. When they're looking through, I've been on the other side too now, where I'm getting resumes, and we're stacked up, 7, 8 resumes. I don't care about any of these people, right? I'm just like, to me, they're just a piece of paper. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then, so the only game I'm playing is now I'm looking at their past experience, and I'm looking at their past companies they've worked for, and I'm looking at all this stuff. And at the same time, it's like, man, like, I don't care about these people. To me, I'm just comparing stats, right? And but if I knew one of these people, and one of these people was my friend, or they reached out to me, or they're like, dude, I love the stuff you post on the internet, or like, I love those memes you posted, or whatever. Like, if I had a connection with one of them, they would definitely move on to my let's get these guys interviewed list.
Everyone needs to seek out a competitive advantage so that they can somehow be on a level playing field with those who have more experience. So can you tell us about your favorite ways that a person can gain some competitive advantage? Like a junior Salesforce developer can shave their legs.
Yeah. I like that. You can actually shave your legs. Maybe you could take a photo of that, put it on your resume. I don't know. That might be weird. Don't do that, actually. So I think of job hunting in two ways, right? I think of it like, now these are weird and maybe they're just like super American examples, but fishing and hunting. Okay. So when you're fishing, what you're doing is or let's talk hunting first. So hunting is simple, right? Like hunting, you are intentionally chasing after a certain animal, for example, just in hunting. You're going after them, and everything you do is just to literally land this one animal, right? Like that's what you're doing. So when you're going elk hunting, you do certain things. I don't know, I've never been, but you do certain things to chase after this. All right, so there's hunting. The other thing is fishing. Fishing is this idea where you're actually going to put bait on a hook and you're going to cast the line, and then you're waiting for the fish to come to you. And so I think if you're looking to career change into software development, I think you need to have strategies that are both hunting, where you are specifically going after certain jobs, and you're fishing, where you're doing things to create people that come to you. So let me give you some examples of fishing. Fishing would be, to me, like when you constantly trying to post things that you're learning or you've built on LinkedIn. You're taking screenshots, you're posting them. You're using hashtags on LinkedIn to connect with other Salesforce people. Hey, just built this new Lightning Web Component, hashtag Salesforce jobs on LinkedIn, which is a relevant LinkedIn hashtag. Things like that. Using a site like TripleByte. TripleByte is a website that lets you take coding tests from the comfort of your own home, and then they fast track you to on-site interviews at other companies. And so some of those roles are, I've seen one or two Salesforce roles on there. If you have the knowledge like that, that's fishing, right? Like you've done that, but now, and I forgot to mention with TripleByte, one of the things is once you've completed that test, companies come to you with cash offers saying, we want to offer you, this amount of money to come work for us. And then if you say yes, then you go straight to an on-site interview to do to do your final interview with them. And if everything goes good, they know you've already done a portion of that. So like it's doing things that people come to you. Another site that I love, and here's kind of an insider tip. I'm working on putting all this stuff together into like a way to teach people this stuff. But here's an insider tip that you're going to love. This is a website called, and this is for most, I'm not sure this has to do with a lot of Salesforce projects, but it's called parkerdewey.com. And parkerdewey.com is a way for companies to give you small projects to test you as a dev. And these small projects will, if you've done good enough, if you've made enough connections and they like you, they'll actually hire you on full time. But you get paid for these small projects too. Not a lot. They'll be like, hey, build us a website for $200 or something like that. But this is a project that you have that you can put on your portfolio that other people will see and say, I like this person's work. That's fishing to me. Hunting is going to different websites, putting your application out there, finding those 3 jobs ideas, like you're specifically going after those. And I think both are really valuable. So, I mean, hunting, most people understand that, right? Like that's going to glassdoor.com, that's going to linkedin.com/jobs and typing in Salesforce developer and then seeing the ones you might qualify for and then applying for, and even the ones you don't qualify for or apply for. But yeah, so that's how I like to think about it. Hunting and fishing, like attracting and going after it.
And
so that was my second job too. I didn't know anything. I didn't know that this job even existed. A recruiter found me on LinkedIn because I had really worked on my LinkedIn profile. And I had a lot of keywords in there and a lot of things that I think really help people find me. And she found me and she's like, I think you're perfect for this job. And I think it was a good fit.
Cool. So having a nice LinkedIn profile, generating Salesforce content either through a blog or YouTube or LinkedIn posts will attract you good jobs.
Exactly.
All right. Any other suggestions you would give so that jobs come you, not you go for the jobs?
Here's what I did. I started my own WordPress consulting kind of company when I didn't know a lot of web development. I started my own website and I started asking family and friends, do you need websites? And one of my friends was starting up a coffee shop. So I was like, do you have a website? No. I'm like, can I do it for you for free? She's like, yeah. But you know what I did? I built that website. It took me 3 days ish. I built that website. I put it on my portfolio. I showed it to everyone. I made sure it was the most beautiful site I could create. And I showed it to everyone. I was like, look, I'm a web developer. I'm doing this. So if you're having a hard time building experience, because I know that's one of the hard things, right? Like, feel free to start your own thing. Like, people, not a lot of people will say no to a free website. If you can get them to pay for it, even better. You know, and there's tons of ways to do that, but tons of videos on
Awesome.
YouTube to check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that idea about offering your Salesforce consulting or admins or development skills uh, to nonprofits or whoever else needs them so that you
Mm-hmm.
can build up your Salesforce portfolio, right?
Yeah, totally.
Any other suggestions you would give, Joshua, to people who want to get their first Salesforce jobs, like when you went for an interview?
Yeah, let's talk about some interview etiquette. I think is important right now, especially during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a lot of remote interviews, and so now, like I said, I'm on the other side. I get to interview people to bring on our team, and I'm part of that process, and so that's kind of fun. I have seen some crazy stuff go down on some of these interviews. Here's one of them. This clicking, and I'm sitting there on the other side of the screen, like freaking out, like their anxiety is now coming onto me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like stop with the clicking, right? I had other people, who, okay, so here's how I think of an interview. I think of a remote interview just like a normal interview. I make sure that I'm dressed up. I make sure that my work area is clear. I make sure, I make sure that the noise in my house is down. I tell my kids, hey, dad's going to be on an interview. Like, let's calm down. All right. Like, everyone watch a movie, type of thing. So I think creating a good environment, all these intangibles come across. Also, I would say turn your camera on. Like, do your hair, dress up nice, turn your camera on. Like, because as a person, if I can't connect to you like as a person, then to me I just have the only thing I have is to compare your stats versus the stats of someone else. And when you don't have any stats because you haven't gotten started, like, you've given me nothing to work with, nothing to want to wish for you to get on my team. Like, so turn your camera on. Now, that being said, I have had people turn their camera on. They're on their beds, laying back, and I'm telling you, they're on their beds, laying back, and their hair's jacked up, and they're just they're just like I'm their buddy, and we're having a FaceTime chat, and I'm like, we're interviewing like for a job. Like, my company's going to pay you a lot of money if we bring you on. Like, you couldn't do your hair, like, or and these are the human factors that I think that we sometimes look past that stop us from moving forward in the process.
Cool.
That
Yeah.
was what I would say on that end. Do you have anything you think would be is good for that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Turn on your camera, have some Salesforce memorabilia around yourself, show your passion for Salesforce. Maybe have a Salesforce t-shirt or a sweater that
Yeah,
says Trailblazer. I don't have that Salesforce mascot thing around you. Come out as a Salesforce fan, and I think that will
right.
help you stand out. And of course, as you mentioned, dress nice, have a nice microphone, test your microphone, and make sure you don't use those garbage words. I mean, you like, you know what I mean, and just practice. Make sure you come
Yes.
across clean. Uh,
How about the technical side? Say it like, is there anything that like, how have you prepared for your?
I practice. I practice a lot. I
Mhm.
suggest everyone prepare answers for common questions.
Right.
Like, what's the trigger framework? What's the best practice for test classes? What's the difference between before insert and after insert, etc. Yeah, there are common probably 10 questions that you need to understand well, and you should practice. Yeah, with yourself, recording yourself on your camera, practice with a friend, and see what your mistakes are.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you'll be in a pretty good position for many interviews. And
Yeah.
what do you think for technical interviews, Josh?
So I know it's scary for a lot of people. That part freaks me out. I have been kicked out of interviews because I just like kind of freeze, and all the things that are like in my head just seem to leave, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I write a for loop again? Like, I just forget. everything when I'm doing that. But that being said, I haven't done a ton of interviewing in the Salesforce space, but for all the interviews I have had, I will say that there wasn't much for technical interviews. Other like as far as
Mm.
me like writing code, like um, I had to answer a lot of questions and things like that. To know that that I knew that I had my understanding of what Salesforce was and how it works. So those are really helpful. And yeah, and so Trailhead is really good for you because you're gonna it's gonna teach you all the things you kind of need to know to be a practical developer. And I want to echo what you said about making sure you know the answer to some of those questions. If you think about it, if you take a second to take yourself out of the interviewee and be the interviewer, like these companies are busy and they want to get you in as fast as possible. You are coming into interview are another appointment on their schedule, right? Like so they haven't put a ton of from what I know, they generally don't put a ton of thought into their interview process. And here's what I mean. What they do, like here's what happens. The interview time comes up 30 minutes before. Oh, dang it, I have that interview right now. So you know what happens? They go to Google and they type in top questions for Salesforce developers and they hit enter. And then they scroll down. They're like, oh, that one looks good. I know that. I know that blog. I know that company. And then they read. They're like, oh, that's a good question to ask. That's a good question to ask. That's a good question to ask. Um, and then they ask you those questions. So listen, you have the same resources that like people who are interviewing you have as well. You're just one Google search, you're a few Google searches away from knowing what your interviewers are about to ask you. So spend some time, doing that, going through those questions and stuff. And if you ask me how I know that, it's because that's exactly what I do when it's time to interview people. I don't know. Have you interviewed people much, say it?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Right.
We are developers. Yeah, we Google everything, and we Google for developer questions too,
Yeah.
and then we just might add on some of our additional on top. But
Sure.
that'll be a base that we will
I
build
agree.
on top of. What do you think people should do if they don't know answers to some questions?
That's a good question. And you can try to fake your way through your answers if you want. That comes with its own percentage of success. I find it best to just be humble and just say, "Oh, that's a great question. I actually don't know." That might discredit you just from the interview. Just know that. Like that's just a part of the game that you're playing. I remember on one of my first interviews after coding bootcamp, they asked me about my GitHub workflow. They're like, "What's your GitHub workflow?" And I'm like, now you got to understand, I've only used GitHub in bootcamp. I have no idea what the practical applications of GitHub are. I just know how to write the commands that they told me to, like I copy and paste them into the console and the terminal, I mean, and then I send them off, and so I had an idea. I was like, I like to save to GitHub every 20 minutes, like, and the guy's like, okay. I'm like, yeah, and I'm totally making my way, through this, making this up. I just remember him being kind of like, oh, that's excessive, like thinking, just seeing his face. So after that, I just was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to say, hey, you know what, like, I don't have much experience with GitHub. Like, honestly, we've been using it a lot in coding bootcamp right now, and when I was doing my previous like WordPress dev stuff, I never really messed with GitHub, so it's actually kind of new to me, and I'm interested in learning kind of what best practices are to follow that. But I think, yeah, but I don't have a ton of experience of what that would look like, and just
I agree with you.
knowing
I
yourself.
agree with you. Don't People shouldn't be afraid to say I don't know. Yeah, there is a lot I don't know in Salesforce. I
Right.
don't know a lot of things actually in Salesforce. Yeah, and and so if you don't know something like GitHub workflow, I know what it is. It's some kind of automation. Uh, when you do pull request, it might create something or might create a scratch work. I don't know. It depends on how you configure, but something
Yeah.
that developers typically don't do. Something DevOps people I think set up. And if I say I don't know, I think that's totally reasonable. And people
Hmm.
shouldn't expect that they have to know everything. People should prepare an answer for that kind of question? Like I will go out and Google, or I will go out and look at a
Yeah.
Udemy course on GitHub, and that's how I will learn that thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You can, you know, and then don't be afraid to say something along the lines of like, hey, so the interview is coming to an end, right? Any questions for us? You know, that's kind of how what the interview would ask you, right? Do you have any questions for us? Like, this is the human part where you can connect. You could be like, you know, man, I feel really bad about that GitHub question. Like, if that's like a make it or break it thing for you, like for as far as me getting this job, like I'd really love to work here, but if that's really like a make it or break it thing for you, like for me, like I will this weekend spend like my entire weekend um, learning GitHub and the ins and outs of that. And I'll give you a much better answer Monday. Is that acceptable to you? And if they're like, oh, you don't have to do that, you know, maybe they don't want you, but maybe they'll be like, okay, well, yeah, let's see what you can do. You know, you could have just saved yourself that interview. And that interview is like, man, this guy works hard. He's going to give up his own time to research this and do that. You know, they might tell you no because maybe they just found a better candidate or whatever. But I'll tell you what, like saying things like that and following through, I should say, with things like that, really sets you aside as a candidate and is like, this guy's just not looking for a paycheck. This guy's passionate about it and he's going to work hard.
Yeah, I
So,
love what you did there just now. In general, I'm really impressed by how well you communicate and how well you show your initiative. Maybe it's your background as a pastor.
yeah, communicating.
I don't know, but
Yeah,
you really stand out, I think, with your communication skills. And
I
that's
appreciate
what I
it.
would
Thank you.
recommend to many people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have good communication skills. You have to be able to show your knowledge. You should be able to articulate what you know in Salesforce. Yeah, if you can't
Hmm.
articulate what you know, then what do you know?